for high school. I went to Queens High School for the Sciences for high school. Once I graduated from there in 2013, I went to Columbia. I went to Columbia's engineering school and did a chemical engineering degree with an applied math minor. Um, I graduated from Columbia in 2017. After that, I was working as an engineer down in the South or down South for about 3 years before I came back to school. Now I'm back in school. I'm at Harvard. I'm doing the joint JD, so the law degree, and then MBA, the business degree here. It's a 4-year program. I'm in year 2. And yeah, I've been tutoring in Kweller Prep for about 10 years now. So uh, excited to kind of walk you all through college application process. It's changed quite a bit since I was applying to college, namely that the Common App is significantly more streamlined, has significantly more functionality than it did back in the day. So I was talking about this with a few friends recently, and kids these days are very lucky. But yes, Francis, so I can share screen. And actually, let me this.
And if you have any questions, please use this opportunity to communicate them with us in the chat box. I will be responding to any messages that you post. And we're very, very happy that you're listening. What we're going to do right now, because this was heavily requested, especially by parents of high school seniors, was to go over the nuances of the college application. We are also going to host another webinar to go over the reading part, to go over the math part. And we just want to let you know that that will all be covered. We will host multiple webinars and that will be covered another. But right now we're going to go into the Common App. If you have questions, please post them into the chat box. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, and to be clear, we'll have another webinar for the reading and math of the SAT.
Yes, and we have webinars all the time. Okay, so keep that in mind. Kareem, just please make the screen larger. Okay.
Sure. So I'll kind of like walk through from beginning to end how to add a college to your Common application. I'll walk through the differences between the Common App and the supplemental portions of writing that you'll have to do for specific colleges. And hopefully those pieces are helpful, but please do post whatever questions you have in the chat and I'll guide the conversation that way. So all I'm doing here is I'm going to the college search function, like the 4th tab over on the right. Or first, let's walk through kind of like where we are. So this is like the homepage of the Common App portal. So if you go to commonapp.org, you can create your own profile. When you're creating that profile, it'll ask you for kind of the very surface level things, name, address, so on and so forth. And then you'll be able to log in on the homepage of the portal. So welcome, Kareem. There's a bunch of different resources that are here. One of the things that wasn't there when I was doing my college application process was the financial aid resources. So I'll just point you to that tab very quickly. So notice how it goes through a significant amount of information on how financial aid works, federal loans versus loans that are offered by like colleges or universities, planning for college costs, understanding college affordability, net price calculator center based on parents' income, so on and so forth, how to apply for financial aid. So FAFSA, your CSS profile. So your FAFSA is going to be for all schools. Your CSS profile will be for private institutions that accept the CSS. Your federal student aid ID, which is going to be necessary for your FAFSA. It walks you through all of these things. So this is an incredibly helpful resource as you're starting to think about how to pay for school for your children or for yourselves, depending on kind of who we're talking to, I suppose. So exploring scholarship opportunities. And we've done another webinar on scholarship specifically and how there's many websites out there that aggregate a variety of scholarships, just kind of like sitting out there on the interweb. There's also like aggregators that are for specific communities. So there's aggregators, sorry, just 1 second, I have to call. There's aggregators for people of color, for LGBTQ, for I mean, literally any denomination or any like smaller subgroup that you can think of. But there are broader aggregators out there that you can go to as well, comparing financial aid offers. So when you receive financial aid offers from multiple schools, how to make that decision, and it starts talking you through these things. And then it has a financial aid FAQ, and you can get even more information there. So incredibly helpful resource, something that I didn't have back in 2013 when I was applying, or 2012 when I was applying, 2013. Yeah, either way, 2012 into 2013 when I was applying to college. And the other portions here, so the My Colleges will only populate once you add colleges after you search for them. So I won't talk about that just yet. And then the common application I'll talk about in just a second. So I will search for Columbia just because it's the institution that I know the best and have spent the most time at so far. So you can search for Columbia. You can, when you have this menu here, you can go to college information, college website, admissions office. So I'll walk you through each one of those things. So college information, it tells you about the deadline. So early decision has already passed, but regular decision is right around the corner. Tells you the application fee. It's the same for both international and domestic. It tells you recommendations. You need 2 teacher evaluations, and there's 1 optional other evaluation. And it tells you a bunch of other, and there's people joining. I'm sorry about that. So
Kareem, I can handle all the admits. I can handle all the chats. You can just proceed. I'm good to go.
okay, perfect. So then it tells you about the writing requirements as it pertains to Columbia. So the Common App personal essay, which all schools will ask for. And then there's also college questions and then a writing supplement. So you can look at what the additional college questions are. Oh, but they'll be like once we get to the writing supplement. So college questions, writing supplement, and these are going to be unique for Columbia. So to be very clear, the Common App is going to be something that you fill out for all schools. The writing supplements are going to be specific to the school that you would be applying to. So Columbia will have a different writing supplement than Harvard, Princeton, UPenn, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's kind of the general information about Columbia. And let me just go back and I'll walk you through the other menu options here. So you can go to the college website. So external link to Columbia's website. Very streamlined, another feature that was not on the Common application when I was doing it. First year applicants, learn more. Transfer applicants, learn more. Combined plan applicants. So Columbia has a slew of different combined plan programs where you can do a bachelor's of a hard science at another institution, and then you can come to Columbia for 2 more years and get another Bachelor of Science in some engineering discipline. So many people will do a bachelor's in chemistry and do it in 3 years, and then come over to Columbia and do another 2 years, and they'll get their bachelor's in chemical engineering or some other type of engineering. Visiting students, so on and so forth. Affordability, aid, how to apply for financial aid. So a lot of the same information that was already on the Common App website, and different news articles that are applicable, different information about the school, student to faculty ratio, how many undergraduates, programs of study, all the information that you could possibly want. This information will be exceedingly important for filling out the writing supplements. So this will all tie back together, but I'll keep on going. Oh my goodness, that was so crazy. That was a classmate of mine that was walking there. So that's so interesting. I didn't expect that one. I have to tell him that he's on the website. Then admissions office. So this seems like it would link to the same place. Yeah, this links to the same website, but it won't be the same website for all institutions. So some institutions will have a separate website for the admissions office versus like general college information, but it's all integrated for Columbia. So I've added, once I've researched the school and I now understand that, okay, Columbia seems like an institution that would suit me. I would add the school to my colleges by just pressing this plus sign over here, and I've done so already. And now Columbia is in my colleges and it's the only institution in my colleges. So when you go to the drop down menu for Columbia, it'll give you, again, all the information about Columbia. And then it'll tell you all the questions that you need to fill out as it pertains to Columbia. So it'll be questions regarding kind of your preferred start term. Do you intend to pursue need-based aid, so on and so forth, student, and then all the activities that you expect to, or that you'll be reporting, that can be populated from the Common App portion. Your academics, so what courses you're taking right now, emergency contacts, family, if anyone in your family is in college or applying to college at the same time, or also talks about kind of your parents and their situation as pertains to college. So my parents, for example, didn't have the opportunity to go to college. So for this information, I would include that. I'll let it pop up. Yes. Yeah, no other siblings applying to Columbia this year. Have any relatives that have ever attended Columbia? No, all these things. Sometimes they'll ask about like I guess I have to say that they're living, and then they'll ask about employment status, occupation, position, title, their level. Typically it asks about their level of education as well, because that'll be a factor that they're interested in, like, are you first generation versus not. Hopefully it lets me get out of this without saying it's incomplete. Let's see. Yes, okay, perfect. So recommenders and FERPA. So FERPA is a Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. And let me check. Just as a reminder, you all should be able to send me chats. So if you have any questions, please do kind of send them in the chat, and I'm happy to respond to them as they come. If not, I'll kind of just continue walking you through kind of the general piece here, but I know that this was a highly requested session, so I'm happy to change or adjust as you need. So FERPA is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And what FERPA does is it judges, or it, like, if you give your release to FERPA, it says that, hey, I do not have to receive a copy of the recommendation that my recommenders have written for me. I'm happy not to receive that. That, in some sense, is telling the colleges that, oh, okay, you trust your recommender, and you trust your recommender, you don't need to see their recommendation, and that is typically considered a good sign. Like, our recommendation is always to waive your right to see the recommendations that have been written for you by your recommenders. But if you disagree with that and you absolutely must see them, or if you go against the advice that we've given you, what will happen is that the recommendations will be sent your way. You'll get a copy of them, and you'll be able to peruse them. But again, the recommendation is typically to waive that FERPA right, as it shows that you are trusting of your recommenders and that you've had the conversation with them beforehand of what you'd like to see in the recommendation. It just shows that, one, you trust them, and two, that you've communicated with them sufficiently to prep them on the recommendation. It isn't just something random that you have sent. And then we get to this other portion here: review and submit the Common App. So in order to begin the submission process, you need to complete the following items. So these are the following items from your Common application that you can find under this tab. And I will go in that direction first. So notice how, like, this is an applications tab, right? So this is broader information. So questions are general, FERPA rights, general. These are questions that you're going to have to answer for all institutions that you apply to. And this is the majority. This is the majority of the questions that you'll answer. So you have profile settings that are going to be pre-populated because you've made an account. Address, contact information, demographics, language, geography, nationality, if you're applying for a fee waiver, so on and so forth. Then again, ask you questions about your family, your parents, their level of education, all these things, how they interact, marriage, are your parents married or are they not, all that information as pertains to family. Education, it'll ask you about your high school. This is the high school that I went to, Queens High School for the Sciences of the Year College. I entered this year and I graduated in 2013. And yeah, and didn't take any gaps, so not applicable here. And then it'll ask you a slew of other information. Oh, a chat has come in. So one question has come in saying, what are preparations for joining IT as a professional? So I'd say that the preparations for IT are no different necessarily than the preparations for any field, I suppose. So the major thing would be, what I would recommend is you can look at World News and Report, or US World News and Report, and see the rankings for different institutions that specialize in IT. From there, that's kind of like a good basis for figuring out, what institutions do IT best. And then you want to probably have some level of focus on applying to those institutions. You certainly want to apply to an institution that has IT as a major that they offer. So you want to make sure that that's the case if IT is 100% the thing that you would like to pursue. And once you have, I guess, those rankings and those recommendations from US News and World Report, there's also other kind of ranking systems out there. It just gives you a basis for the schools that you should be applying to or should be looking at. The other thing that you can do is you can look at the college search tool. And under the college search tool, when you go on those colleges' websites, you can like really dig into, how well they do IT. You can look up graduates who have gone high up in IT at, different corporations and that type of thing. So, in short, application to colleges that, one, offer IT as a major, but two, do IT well, or like have a strong major in that field. And then I'd say relatedly, when you're filling out your activity section, you want to make sure that you have like some level of STEM or some level of interest shown in IT. So, if you've ever worked, I can't speak intelligently to IT, but I'll just throw some random words out there that my level of understanding of IT. So if you worked in, data structures or what have you that are applicable to IT, or some level of STEM, if you've worked with computers and had to rebuild hardware as it pertains to computers, then I think that those things would be good for IT. So you want to make sure that you include those in your activity section when you're filling out your common application. If you are indeed saying that you have the interest in IT and that is what you would like to major in. Hopefully that's helpful. So another question just came in. I came in a bit late, but can you explain what will be a benefit to fill out an application on the Common App website as opposed to mailing an application? Or is that the only option for some colleges? I also noticed that some colleges, like local ones, aren't listed in this site. So I believe I actually have never had a student that I've worked with send a paper application in. But I believe that for equity purposes, colleges have to have a way by which you can send in an application by mail. So yes, you certainly can send an application by mail. You probably have to call the college and ask them to send you an application, and then you fill it out and send it back. However, the benefit to using the Common application is that if you're applying to multiple colleges, you don't have to redo the work associated with it. Like you don't have to rewrite the essay or fill out the information that doesn't change about family situation, activities, your profile, those, those background, your test scores, all of these things that are going to be the same, but you're just filling out the same thing for multiple colleges. So Common App stores all of that common information and allows you to use that same information for the multiple colleges that you apply to. And the only change is that some colleges ask for a writing supplement, and that'll be unique to the college. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense, and that the Common App is reducing the amount of work that you have to do because it's storing all that information that is going to be the same for all the colleges that you apply to. The other piece about colleges like local ones aren't listed in the site. So yes, those colleges will usually have, like if you have a local college or a community college, especially ones that aren't in major metropolitan areas, you'll have to either go on their website and fill out an application like through their website because they just haven't partnered with Common App yet, or you'll have to get a paper application from them and then mail it in. But again, paper applications in this day and age are not incredibly common, though you can go through the hoops in order to get them. Hopefully that answers your question. And please do follow up if it didn't sufficiently answer your question. So kind of jumping back to the Common App piece, education, I was just saying that this is a high school I went to.
Corinne, can you make it just a drop larger so everyone can see the screen?
That.
Perfect.
So yeah, just the education piece, the high school that I went to, when I started, when I ended, it's not a boarding school, all of these kind of like special details about the colleges. And then when you get to the bottom here, it asks about if you ever attended other high schools or other secondary schools. So if you've had to like change schools for any reason, you would include that type of information. If you've taken any college level courses. So if you've taken coursework at colleges or universities, then it would ask you, okay, well, why did you take them? Was it a summer program, dual enrollment? Was it towards what type of degree? You know, what are the details behind you having taken those courses? Continuing on. So your grades as it pertains to the courses that you took in high school, your current and most recent year courses. So the courses that you're taking right now, but you won't have grades by the time that you put the application in. So they want to see if you've continued to challenge yourself while you are in high school. So it would be nice in this case to have some AP courses here or what have you. I took BC calculus and I guess physics B and C, like the mechanics physics and then the electricity and magnetism physics are separate, or at least they have two separate scores that they'll give you. So either way, I was taking both of those things in my senior year, and that obviously is a good thing to show that you're not, taking your foot off of the gas because it's your last year in high school and you figure you're going to college somewhere. So yeah, it's important to kind of maintain the consistency. That is as it pertains to the courses that you've taken or are taking. As well as the activities that you're engaged with. So the ideal situation is if you've been involved with that activity to continue doing it all the way through your senior year, as long as it kind of like makes sense to your story and as long as you have the bandwidth to do so. Any honors that you've received. So yeah, it'll ask for honors title, postgraduate, what grade level, what level of recognition, all that stuff. So these could be things like science competitions, or a variety of honors. It really could be anything, as it pertains to honors, but they do have to be academic in nature. Community-based organizations. So they really go into quite a bit of depth here, and hopefully that's what you're taking away from this. So community organizations that you provided with free assistance. So I used to help out this food bank that wasn't too far. It was in Queens, and I used to go there for the holidays every Thanksgiving and Christmas in the morning. Or I think at that time I was going just on Thanksgiving, but either way, so that's an example of a community organization that I would list down here and what I did for them and who oversaw me, all that stuff. So yeah, that could be in the activity section, or if you want to write in the community organization piece, you'd have to include the name of who oversaw you and their email and such. And obviously it's possible that they get a reach out just to make sure that this is the case. So that touches upon one of the core tenets of applying to college, which is do not lie. Yeah, and I tell students this all the time, and some hear me and some don't, but it is a scary thing. If you have misrepresented something on the application, and let's say you're interviewing, for example, and you say something contrary to what you put down on your application, or a variety of things can happen. If you write an essay and you forget that you put something else down here, and then the timelines don't line up or whatever, colleges can pick up on those things. So the ideal situation is that you do not lie. And I tell students that all the time. So future plans, what your career interest is, what highest degree you anticipate earning. These things they know, like you don't know for certain, but notice that they're the required questions because they want to see that students are thinking about their futures. So when I filled this out, I probably thought PhD was going to be the answer to this question. I was very gung-ho about getting my PhD in chemical engineering. Obviously, a lot of things have changed. I'm doing my law and business degree at this point. So again, it's not an absolute thing, but they do want to see that, you've thought about what life post undergrad looks for you. If you're going to pursue more degrees, if you're not really, but does your career interest line up with just needing a bachelor's? They want to see that type of thought process. Testing, obviously a very important of the application process. So you'll self-report scores, and then it gives you the selection of what scores you want to self-report. So for me, I took the SAT test, I took AP tests, and I took the SAT subject tests, or many SAT subject tests, many AP subject tests, so on and so forth. So that's what I put down here. But many students have ACT, IB tests, TOEFL, and other like tests as it pertains to English as a second language, that type of thing, just to show your proficiency in English. International applicants, international applicants have kind of more granularity as it pertains to the application process. It'll ask in a few areas if you are an international, and that'll change things to some degree. It also changes financial aid prospects and that type of thing, but that's probably not applicable to folks on this call, so we don't have to dive into that too much. And then once I populated that, I took the SAT subject tests, and AP tests. It now populates down here, and it asks me about the scores that I've gotten on each one of them, which ones have I taken, so on and so forth. For myself, I put down that I took the SAT twice. That is the case. That is true. I took it for the first time. I think I took it cold the first time just to see where I was. I probably wouldn't recommend that at this point because there's so much competition. But I took it cold the first time, and the second time I had kind of like worked through some workbooks and worked through things, and certainly did better the second time. And that is, again, kind of something that they would like to see. If you took the test the first time and didn't do so well, and I did fine in the first time, but if you took the test and you didn't do so well, they want to see the improvement. They want to see the commitment to doing the exam and those types of things. So taking a second time is oftentimes a good choice, depending on the score that you got the first time, obviously. And they would love to see the improvement and the consistency there. So activities, like I mentioned before, activities, you can put up to 10 of them. So what does the fact that you have 10 activities to put down mean for your application? It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fill up all 10, but it does mean that you should fill in everything that you can think of and everything that's applicable to your application process. So sometimes the things can be like, fairly small, but you should still include them just to show that like to give breadth and color to your application. So you want to put them in the order of most importance to you. So you want to put like the stuff that was most formative for you. So for me, most formative things would probably be basketball. I played basketball growing up, all the way through middle school, and that was a huge benefit to like my time management skills and prioritization and that type of stuff, structure. Um, Not relatedly, but another thing was that I did research in high school, all throughout high school, um, every summer. So I did research in a biology lab and then research in a chemistry lab for the 2 other summers. And those were also very formative experiences and gave me an introduction into STEM, and solidified why I wanted to pursue it. So again, another activity that I would put, things I would put lower down, maybe the fact that I have a hobby of uh, running distance, on some consistent basis. Like I run 3 times a week or something like that. That isn't the case for me, unfortunately. But yeah, either way, that would be an example. Or other things that are just like not as important, but something that kind of shows who you are as an individual. So hopefully that's helpful there. It makes sense. We have another chat. Um, so what did I get on my first SAT? And what's the difference between an SAT test and an SAT subject test? So I guess for this presentation, maybe it's not as appropriate. Maybe that's like a more direct conversation, of what I got on my first SAT. But I will say this, it would not be reflective of what happens today, in that the SAT is now scored out of 1600. And back when I took it, it was scored out of 2400. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no AT2 subject tests anymore, which is also very important. Like it doesn't even exist anymore. So that's not there, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So the subject tests are no longer a thing, and yeah, the SAT is now scored out of 1600 instead of 2400. But to kind of give a little bit of color, it's surprising that it's on the Common App website. The SAT subject tests, um, what they used to be called were SAT twos, and they were just specific to a topic. So they used to have the SAT two for math one, which was like no calculator math, math two for so the other question popped up. So basically you don't have to fill out the form when it asks you for the SAT subject test. So uh one quick second. Um Let me just confirm something very quickly. Quick pause, folks. Quick pause. Okay, yeah, no. So I guess they changed the name. They changed the name, Francis. So they used to be called SAT twos, but now they're just called SAT subject tests. So you have one for, oh yeah, you have one for chemistry, you have one for physics, you have one for
Oh
math.
no, Kareem. They actually had standards back in your day. They actually got rid of SAT2 subject tests. I
Oh,
know. Yes, we're in the twilight zone, but let's proceed.
oh,
Everyone, I guess I can give you background to this. Joking aside, with the pandemic and with really the College Board. So, unfortunately, it was just impossible. They kept canceling. They're not organized. They're not like Kweller Prep, where like I'm under the weather and I don't really feel so great today. I told you guys, but I got to tell you, like we're still running the webinar. I just want to let you know, like they're not like so organized. And Kareem is a full-time law student. He's in business school. He's at Harvard. So unlike us, who are superhuman, unfortunately, the College Board itself is not that organized, and they just could not keep up with what was going on with the pandemic. And there was non-stop cancellation with the SAT, with the SAT subject test. I am going to tell you that Oh, thanks for the compliments. I really appreciate the compliments. I don't mean to guilt any of you for commenting, but I am under the weather and we didn't cancel or reschedule or do anything. And I just want you to know that. So no, don't feel an obligation to tell us how cool we are for keeping this going today. But anyway, as I was saying, it's really, really important that you know that there used to be SAT 2 subject tests as we're speaking to right now in the present. The College Board with the pandemic, with all the changes, they couldn't keep up, which is what I believe. I'm theorizing that, but they decided that they're not going to do that. They're just going to focus on administering the SAT. So their time and resources will only go to SAT, which by the way, skyrocketed AP exam registration. So you should definitely focus on that. But moving ahead, let's do it. Go ahead.
Perfect. So yes, just to jump back to the question from before, yeah, that would mean that you wouldn't fill out the form for the SAT subject tests. And yeah, hopefully that answers that question. And then another question popped in. One second, just have to call. So these applications are meant to help apply for many colleges after high school. Will you still need this website when applying for another college? I assume that what you mean is when you're transferring from one college to another after your first year at your first college. And yes, you can use a common application to transfer schools as well. It does have the capability to do that. So yes, this website would still be useful for you if you are transferring after your first year of school at one institution and you want to go to another. Oh, okay, and you clarified here. So let's say that I finished my master's degree in psychology and I wanted to go for another college to another college for a PhD. Would I still? Oh, no. Okay. So this is exclusively for bachelors. So let's like level set there. When you're applying to PhD programs, when you're applying to, professional degrees like a JD or an MBA or an MD, that application is completely separate. So each school will have their own application for that. That's because, oh, okay, yes, no problem. And that's because these programs are a bit more bespoke, I suppose is an appropriate word to use for it. A bit more bespoke. Even if they're the same degree, they could be categorically different in different institutions. For example, an MBA at Stanford is completely different than an MBA at the University of Pennsylvania, for example, Wharton. So obviously there's like going to be some like core things that you get from an MBA, but the way that they approach the teaching and such will be completely different. So each of these applications will be different and you have to like apply specifically to said program from their portal. And it won't be like a common app interface like this. So yeah, great. Please keep the questions coming. Happy to respond and make this as useful for you, for all the folks on the line as possible. So yeah, again, activities, we talked about it. There's 10 slots here. It means you should include lots of color, but it doesn't mean that you have to include all 10, but it should kind of indicate to you that you want to include stuff, even if it seems like it's not super important to you. You want to include all the most relevant things and all the most important things at the top, but as you move down, you should still include some of the stuff that even if you're on the fence about, you should kind of include it. And then the last piece of the Common App, the writing. So the Common application has a bunch of different topics that you can write about. And the word limit is 650 words. And just remember to like structure your response in kind of an easily digestible way. 650 words, just a level set, is about 2 pages double spaced. So, you have to be concise, but you want to make sure that you flesh out different arguments or different things that you're presenting about yourself sufficiently in that 2 pages. So allocate your words well. And I'll just walk you through kind of the different topics that you have here. So the first is, if you have a background and identity that makes you who you are, share your story. The second, lessons we can take from obstacles we've encountered. Recount a time when you had a setback or a failure and how did it affect you? What did you learn from the experience? The third, reflecting the time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea, what prompted your thinking and what was the outcome? The fourth, something that someone has done for you that made you happy and thankful in a surprising way. How has it affected? How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? The fifth, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth. The sixth, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that you lose all track of time. What is the topic, and why does it captivate you? What do you want to do to learn more about it? So on and so forth. And then the last one is kind of your catch-all. Share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be something that you've written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. So that's kind of your catch-all essay. So the thing that kind of connects all of these essays together is that they are all asking about you. So this is a personal statement and a personal essay for your common application. So it should be exactly that. It should be personal. So the piece that you kind of give in terms of background, like in order to give the sufficient context of the story, such that we understand where you're coming from, that should be kept as small as possible. So Francis typically says, 50 to 100 words are allocated to giving the background and context behind the story. And then the other 550 to 600 are about you. So like, what did you do based on that background that made you change your mindset, or made you challenge that belief, or made you appreciate life in a way that you didn't before, or, what have you. And I think it is oftentimes helpful for folks, for me to talk a bit about what I wrote about, because what's interesting is that this essay hasn't really changed since I applied to college. And that was many years ago, I guess, again, 2013, whatever that would be, almost a decade now. So I wrote about, so I have three older sisters, and, related to that, I have three nieces. I have a nephew. So at that time when I was applying to college, I only had my nephew. Like, my nephew is the oldest. He's, I guess, he's 15 now. So, think 10 years back, my nephew is like 5, 6 years old. I wrote about my nephew and what my nephew taught me about life. So to give a little bit of context, I would just kind of like give the broader things. Okay, three older sisters. My nephew was born at this time, so on and so forth. Cool. Just a little bit of context to like make people understand where I'm going with the essay. And then the rest of the essay, I'm talking about my interactions with my nephew and how I saw that, he wasn't, like, in my head, what I wanted to do is help him kind of avoid all the pitfalls that I went down in life and help him. Yes. So let me pause there and just clarify. So I got a question. Wasn't this meeting for what to expect from the math section of the SAT? So we will be doing that in future webinars, but we got a bunch of emails saying that people would prefer to see what happens on the common application and how to master the common application. So we pivoted here and talked about this instead. But we will be talking about what to expect on both the reading and the writing and math section of the SAT in future sessions. So we run these webinars weekly. Hopefully we can do that one next week. But yes, back to the nephew. So my interactions with my nephew and how I wanted, like, I had seen all the mistakes that I made in my life, and I was like, okay, now I have this other person that's in the world that I interact with all the time. I'm going to make sure that he avoids all the mistakes that I had. And I guess kind of like what happens when you have a kid, but very different because, he is my nephew. But either way, I wanted to make sure he avoided all the mistakes that I had in my life, and, by virtue of that, be more successful and have more good fortune and all of those things. And I saw, that when I tried to force some type of like thought process on him or some type of lifestyle on him, that he was resistant to it, and it frustrated me. And then I realized that, like, life isn't a super linear thing. By him avoiding the mistakes that I've made in my life, it doesn't necessarily mean that he won't avoid other mistakes that I didn't make. He had this fascination with video games and like always wanted to play video games. So by him playing video games, it's not necessarily saying that he won't become a successful person because he's using this time to play video games. Maybe he'll become like a video game programmer, or like there's just so many different avenues that life can go down, and that's what like my interaction with my nephew taught me about life and how life has multiple paths. There is no one right way to do it. There are multiple ways to do it. So just one idea, something that I wrote about, and that's like broad strokes kind of what it was about, but not incredibly necessary to go into too much more detail there. Last thing that I want to do for you all is go to the supplement for Columbia. So these supplements are going to be unique to the institution that you're applying to. They're going to be significantly shorter than the Common App essay. So there's a 75 to 125 word limit for the 3 questions listed below. So let's go to them. List the titles of the required readings from academic courses that you enjoyed most during secondary or high school. 75 words or fewer. So literally listing out all the things that you had in your English class that you had to go through, or that you enjoyed. List the titles of the books, essays, poetry, short stories, or plays you read outside of the academic courses that you enjoyed most during secondary or high school. So there could be a variety of things, right? Like if you're a person that has, a fascination with poetry, it could be, poetry from a specific poet. It could be blog posts. It could be blog posts about something that you're interested in. It could be current events. It could be the Wall Street Journal. It could be the New York Times. It could be publications like that. It could be anything. Short stories, plays, so on and so forth. So I got a question for the supplemental question asking about titles. Can we format it using bullet points? So that is an interesting question, just because I don't know if it gives you the ability to actually physically put a bullet point there. But in the worst case, like you could put a hyphen and then list them out. But it literally says list. So yes, the answer is something like a bullet point would be completely fine. The big thing there would just make sure that you're consistent in the structure that you use. So if you have the title, the author, what have you, you want to make sure that you're consistent in that structure. And I just say that title, author, and maybe you want to say like very quickly what you enjoyed about it or something like that. But again, you have 75 or fewer words, so it really should be kind of like a bullet point type of structure. Similarly here, list of all this stuff, again, bullet point type structure. Remember, make sure that the structure is consistent, because that is important. People appreciate that on resumes, on lists, on anything for that matter. Next, we're interested in learning about some of the ways that you explore your interests. List some resources or outlets that you enjoy, including but not limited to websites, publications, journal, podcasts, social media accounts, lectures, museums, so on and so forth, that you use to engage with the content that you regularly view. So notice how they like list out all of these things. This is kind of like an equity thing, right? Because some people just don't have the ability to go to a museum or go to the movies. Maybe they don't have the money, or it's not accessible to them, what have you. So they even say social media accounts, podcasts, journals, websites, all of these things that typically people have more access to, at least in the US. Perfect. So again, it would be kind of like a listing out, but here, because there is so much nuance associated with a podcast or social media account or so on and so forth, you would probably want to include a little bit of information about what each of these things are. Like if you included an Instagram @ or Twitter, the title of a Twitter or whatever that would be called, that may not be enough to explain what the social media account is about. So you may want to include just like a quick little blurb that says exactly like what it is or what it's about. Notice how you have a few more words here. So that's my sense there. And then 200 or fewer words. A hallmark of the Columbia experience is the ability to learn and live in a community with a wide range of perspectives. So this is kind of like the diversity piece. How do you learn from and contribute to diverse collaborative communities? So people often get kind of like nervous when it comes to the diversity piece, depending on if you don't come from a certain background, so it's not something that should be nerve-wracking. This is like literally like what different perspective you have that you can bring to the community that other people can learn from, or what like diverse perspectives you've been exposed to that you can bring to the community. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, I'll use myself for an example. It doesn't have to be like I grew up in this neighborhood that was predominantly Black and, had these certain things that happened in the neighborhood. And by virtue of that, I can bring this community. It doesn't have to be that. So I hope that that is very clear. Like the diversity piece is diverse in a wide range of things. It doesn't have to be the typical things that people necessarily point to, which would be like race, sexual orientation, so on and so forth. Then why are you interested in attending Columbia University? So this is why we have the website linked that I mentioned before. And you want to make sure that you research the university that you're applying to and make sure that the supplemental answer that you give to them is something that is unique to Columbia. So Columbia, for example, has a core curriculum where they teach you about Aristotle, Plato, like the great thinkers of time and what have you. And as time goes on, they're now starting to include more diverse perspectives of what is considered to be a great thinker. But either way, you want to write about the core. You want to write about the location. You want to write about, a specific professor or what have you that Columbia offers that no other place can't offer. So yeah, this is about like finding unique and compelling things about Columbia specifically and not other places. So I'll stop there. We're at about 8 o'clock and thank you all for joining. I will do the thing that Francis, I'll stop the share now. I'll do the thing that Francis always says and give people the ability to unmute themselves. If you'd like to say a quick thank you, we always appreciate it.
Everyone, let's take a moment. We're going to unmute you. Say thank you to Kareem for this webinar, for taking a lead in the webinar, for Cole for hosting it. Everyone, let's say 1, 2, 3. Let's type and say thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Kareem. Oh my God. Oh, my daughter wants to do this. This is so cute. She wants to join. Hold on. Oh, my little cutie. Say thank you, Kareem.
Thank you, Kareem.
Oh my God, that's
No
so
problem.
cute. She just ran up to the phone and she said she wants to do this. How cute is that? Everyone say thank you, Kareem.
Stay
No
safe.
problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem. No problem. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
And you all can always
Absolutely.
email and ask if you have any more questions. We're here to help.
Thank you.
Thank
Karim.
you.
Appreciate it. Stay
No
safe,
problem.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank
all have a
you.
Good night.
Right. See
Thank
you.
you.
See
Thank you,
again.
Kareem. Thank you.
No problem. You have a
We're
good
going
night.
to close.
Yeah.